Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and welcome to Size Matters. This is the first in a series of videos that I am creating in order to chronicle my own weight loss, discuss male body image and the other topics surrounding that. I decided to begin these videos 2 years ago when I was originally planning a novel of some sort focusing around a weight loss club. Since I read Public Library and other stories by Ali Smith, I've had other ideas that I want to include real stories within that. I thought it would be best to give you my own stories and give you my own ideas surrounding these topics. This video is entitled, How Did We Get Here? Today, I'm going to give you the story of how I happen to be at the point I am in my life. I'm creating these videos to hold myself accountable in the future as I move along, and also give myself an accurate idea in future of the mindset I was in if ever I should feel myself falling by the wayside. To tell this story, we're going to have to get personal, and I am going to have to go back to the age of 8 or 9 is when I believe, where the journey to gaining weight began. And sometimes in my head, I think that it was related to the death of my nan's parents, because we have always been a very close, large, extended family, and I questioned whether there was something emotional in there, which there definitely was. However, I wouldn't like to say that I became an emotional eater due to that, although that is definitely to blame at some point. However, when I was 7, we moved house. And I'd always walked to school up until that point. Obviously, my mum walked us because we were just up the road. But we had now moved quite a way away. And although we tried to walk the journey once, because of my hip problems, because we just go a bit slow, my mother did have 3 children to get to school. I can just remember being in tears because I was late. And as I've told you before, I used to fret a lot about school. It was the most important thing to me when I was a child. And then I grew older and just decided to hate life from about the age of 10. So I was no longer walking to school, and I was really just eating the same amount of food that I was. But that was clearly too much because I began to gain weight. I was really just like a pudgy child. Between the ages of 7 and onwards, there were a lot of deaths in the family. The most major one to me was the death of my granddad when I was 10 years old. Well, at first, it must have done wonders for my weight loss because for about a while after that point, I couldn't actually eat. I can remember the wake after the funeral and just not being able to stomach anything and just being sat in the front room at my nan's house because I didn't want to eat. After that point, the gaining of the weight really began to hit its stride. During this time, my mother, whose father it was who had died, also became rather depressed, as is wont to happen, and I don't blame her in the slightest. But it did mean that whereas she'd been making us sandwiches for lunch, now she'd just send us to school with a pie she'd bought from Aldi because she just hadn't got the strength to be able to make the sandwiches. And then I ended up going to high school. And this time, I was sent to a high school where none of my friends were, and I had no idea where I was going. And I'm already an incredibly nervous person who doesn't like change in the slightest. And the fact that I got sent there and knew nobody really impacted me heavily, because this meant that whereas I had friends, now I was hiding out in the library. I'd eat lunch, which, because then it was still really cheap and you could get chips. So I was getting a portion of chips for my lunch, eating that, hiding out in the library. There was no exercise at all. My mother had to drive me to school. She'd have to pick me up. There was no exercise. I should also say that whilst most children play out in the street, I didn't do that because, once again, when we'd moved, I ended up just fearful, really. I ended up a bit terrified of the streets around me. It's a sad but true fact. I wasn't getting any exercise, and I was eating. And this cycle just continued. And then when I turned 12, I was hospitalised. They sent me to a dietitian because they were like, you are too heavy now. And I lost a stone then. And then it began the cycle of yo-yo dieting. At the age of 12, I got taken to Weight Watchers by my mother. I wasn't actually doing Weight Watchers. It was just that my mum was there, and so I was going along, tagging along to the meetings and sitting there. Yeah, when I turned 15, the hospital actually sent me there as like one of these free NHS things, which obviously it's not free. It cost the taxpayer money. I'm sorry, it didn't work. And whoever I was seeing at the time, this leader that was in charge, had done something wrong, and I actually ended up gaining weight because whilst I was trying to reach these points that this person had given me, and there were a lot of points there, like it was extremely difficult for me to hit these. It was almost double what I was eating, so I actually ended up gaining weight. But I will say that then the weight kind of stopped going on. But we'd already reached this problem. So I was stuck at the same weight, and whilst when I turned 18, I did actually start going to Weight Watchers on my own. I was one of the clerks alongside my mother, so ended up working out a way to get it for free, because obviously from being from a low income, it was extremely difficult for us to pay for it. I lost a stone, and then I put the stone back on. And because that's just the way I was, because I'd achieve something, and then I'd be like, oh well, I can reward myself now, and the reward was usually food. And then we came to 2015. At this point, I hadn't really been losing weight for a while. I was, you know, you lose a pound here, a pound there, but then you put it back on, all that fun stuff. And then we got to the period of unfathomable sadness 2 years ago, which we're blaming a lot on, because that was a bloody awful time of my life. And I am extremely grateful to my mind for setting itself right. Over time, which won't be chronicled on YouTube, you won't be able to see this in my videos, but I gained weight. And I reached the heaviest weight that I've ever reached in my life. It was both a mixture of the summer of 2016. I was unable to sleep because I was that warm. I was that large. I felt unhealthy. I felt really bad all of the time. I'd been on holiday with my mother the year before, and I hated every photograph, and I couldn't go anywhere because I was just feeling so nervous and so horrible about the way that I looked. I ended up one Saturday night, I just couldn't sleep. And it was that Saturday night that I was like, you're not eating any sugar tomorrow, and what's the point in waiting for a new year? You're starting it now. And so I started in the September, and September 2016, I cut out sugar, and then I began to dramatically change everything that I was eating. I knew where I was going wrong. When you are big, when you are fat, there is no, like, you cannot say to yourself, I don't know how I got here. You definitely knew how you got there. You definitely know how you managed to get to that size. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as body positivity. I'm going to talk about that in a later video and in relation to my weight loss as well. But do know there was a period of time in there that I did struggle with body positivity, because on the one hand, I wasn't happy with my body image, but I was happy with myself as a person. I almost didn't feel comfortable losing weight, because I felt like, how can you lose weight and then say you're still comfortable being who you are? But the thing is, weight isn't the person, and that is another thing, another topic for later on down the line, because we are going on quite a bit now. And anyway, I reached that point in 2016 where I was just like, we need to do something dramatic here, and so I did, and I cut out sugar, which sugar had been a big part of my life since the age of 7, when I'd first started drinking tea, actually. So to cut it out was strange. It was definitely something I'd never realised that I was addicted to before, and again, a topic for a later video, but my body coming down off sugar was definitely an experience that I want to discuss at some point. I lost 9 pounds in a week because of how dramatically I'd changed my diet and the exercise that I'd done. And then between September 2016 and the end of the year, I'd lost 2 stone. And then by March last year, I'd lost 2.5 stone. And that's where everything stopped. I mentioned it in my reflections video, but basically I started overtime at work, and I no longer had the time to properly focus and dedicate into losing weight. I've gained 3 pounds since then, I think, and that was after my holiday. And that is all that I've gained, and I'm quite glad to have maintained it, because I know that had this been me a few years ago, then I would have put it back on. This year, I am hoping to lose some more weight. I don't know how much more. For me, it's more about clothes sizes and feeling comfortable in myself. And whilst I am comfortable and I am happy, I do feel like there is room for improvement. And also, there is another reason, which is to do with my knees and to do with my bones and to do with being taken more seriously by my doctors about the pain that I am in. But I also know that through exercise and through weight loss, that will hopefully improve as well. Those are my main reasons for wanting to actually lose weight. Like I say, I want to chronicle this online to put it into perspective and to hold myself accountable. And I am in no way trying to say that everybody who reaches a certain size ought to lose weight. I just thought that I would bring people along for the journey with me, because whilst it would take me a long time to write another novel, it takes me no time at all to share this on the internet. And let's bring people into my life. Let's share this. Let's open this discussion about male body image, because when hasn't a white male tried to steal something from his peers? If you would like to discuss your thoughts about weight and male body image, then please feel free to do so in these videos, in the comments. But I hope that you got something out of this video. Either way, you found out more about Charlie. And until next time, that is all.